Amazing transformation, millionaire opens door to find surprising cleaning lady and baby in rain. Thomas Reilly stood poised at the grand entrance of his extravagant home, the distant rumble of thunder mirroring the turbulence within him. For years, he had soared as the architect of his own destiny, yet on this murky, rain-soaked evening, an unmistakable unease nagged at his conscience. As he prepared to plunge into the latest design proposal, the sharp knock on his door fragmented the stillness, pulling him into a moment he never anticipated. He opened the door to find Maria soaked, trembling, and clutching a wailing baby against her. The storm raged around them, droplets cascading like unrelenting worries, and there was desperation in her weary eyes. The chaos of their worlds collided, and for a fleeting moment, he stood motionless, grappling with the sight of her vulnerability. Her voice broke through his daze, desperate and frantic. She spoke of her aging mother, the mounting medical bills, and her orphaned niece who relied solely on her. Each sob echoed louder than the thunder, and with every frantic word, the weight of his privilege pressed down harder on his shoulders. He was a millionaire, known for luxury and high-profile projects. She was a cleaning lady, drowning in the realities of survival. As he processed her plight, a swirl of emotions enveloped him: guilt, sympathy, hesitation. Could he genuinely help, or was he merely indulging in a fleeting urge to feel noble? Just as Maria turned to leave, drained and defeated, a spark ignited deep within him. But could he act without being patronizing? Would offering assistance risk patronizing her struggle? These thoughts battled within him, creating a suffocating tension. She deserved dignity and empathy, not another empty gesture. He closed the door softly behind her, his mind racing with conflicting intentions as the storm continued to howl. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The following day, after restless hours of contemplation, he invited Maria to his office, a skyscraper filled with glossy accolades and luxurious designs. When she arrived, her gaze was cautious but intrigued. As they spoke, it dawned on him that she wasn't just cleaning floors. She had an eye for organization, a perspective he had overlooked. Every idea she shared unveiled her leadership potential. The thought of offering her a position as a project manager sprang forth, exhilarating yet terrifying. The enormity of the decision weighed on him. Would this be the bridge their worlds needed, or merely a further entrenchment of class disparity? Questions spiraled in his mind. How would his colleagues react? The murmurs of judgment from peers would echo behind him. They valued merit through pedigree. Did he have the courage to challenge that mindset? As he visualized addressing his community, flashes of his own beginnings emerged, sketching blueprints in his cramped apartment, longing for a glimpse of success. But could those memories pave a path toward acceptance, or would they merely fuel resentment? The moment hung heavy in the air, darkness looming outside his window, both literal and metaphorical. He felt each heartbeat thunder against his ribcage as doubt seeped into his resolve. Standing at the precipice of change, the question loomed, electrifying the silence: was he making a difference or merely reshuffling the deck? With his reputation straddling the line, he contemplated the ripple of his next move, as uncertainty gnawed deeper and deeper, preparing to plunge into a storm far greater than the one raging outside. The day of the meeting arrived, cocooned in a thick haze of anticipation. Thomas stood at the helm of his expansive conference room, knee-deep in plans and architectural sketches that felt half-formed and wildly inadequate. He had invited Maria to showcase her organizational prowess, a decision that filled him with both hope and trepidation. As the meeting time approached, he cast uneasy glances at the clock, each ticking second a reminder of the precariousness of his choice. When she walked in, the air shifted. There was a newfound determination in her posture, a spark ignited by the understanding that she was stepping into a realm where few like her had trodden. Yet, Thomas couldn't shake the question of whether he was guiding her into empowerment or furthering her burden. "Thank you for coming, Maria," he said, gesturing to the empty chair at the table. She hesitated at first but soon settled in, glancing at the glossy presentations that lined the walls, her expression a mixture of awe and wariness. "Your ideas last time, they really resonated with me," he started, watching her closely for any shift in confidence. "I think we could incorporate some of your insights into our next project, maybe even explore a managerial role for you." Her brow furrowed, as if weighing his words against years of self-doubt and struggle. "You want me to manage a project?" "But I'm just Maria," he interrupted, careful to maintain a steady voice. "You have perspective. You've managed so much in your life already. Imagine applying that experience here. You could bring something valuable to the team." But doubt swam in her eyes, skepticism fighting against the glimmer of possibility. "I don't know if I can navigate that world. It's so different from cleaning. I'm afraid I'll just mess things up." Thomas felt a thorn of frustration stab at him. He had been where she was, fearful, uncertain, grappling with looming expectations. Yet, he hesitated to bridge that gap. "What would your niece say if she knew you were holding back? You are capable of more than you realize. You just have to believe it, like I had to." Silence engulfed the room. The weight of his challenge lingered like an uninvited guest. How could he impart the importance of faith in oneself without sounding condescending? This wasn't just about her, it was a philosophy that demanded change within him too. Planning to take a stand against the elitism that permeated both his profession and his conscience would be no small feat maybe. "I could try," she finally said, her voice barely above a whisper. There was something else in her tone, an ember of resolve. "But if it doesn't work out, I don't want it to reflect poorly on you." His heart raced. The collaboration had begun, but now the shadows of judgment loomed larger. Could he face the skepticism of peers who might view her presence as an affront? The risks were palpable. Yet a flickering ambition ignited within him. This wasn't merely about elevating her but redefining their worlds through intersectional possibilities. As meetings progressed, he found himself advocating fiercely for her ideas, equally thwarted and emboldened by the conflict that brewed within. The atmosphere shifted as others began considering the potential she offered, but every encouraging word from colleagues was met with whispers of doubt. Rumors that her past would overshadow her current endeavor loomed anticipatedly over both their heads. It became increasingly complex as Thomas faced the reality that his willingness to support Maria might cost him relationships built on prestige but with little substance. The stakes were elevating. While he felt the stirrings of purpose inside him, doubt still lurked. Would courage demonstrate itself through confrontation, or would that blend into a cause for cashing in favors? Determined for integrity, he resolved to address his team about their perceptions. The moment of truth he had long shied away from approached, tethering them both to a crossroad of vulnerability and strength. As preparations began for that critical meeting, Thomas penned his thoughts on a notepad, and just like before, an inner voice warned, the time had come to face the storm brewing in his own heart. As Thomas paced the sleek wooden floors of the office, his thoughts swirled like leaves caught in an autumn gust. The weight of his decision loomed over him, each step towards the meeting room echoing with the promise of change. He could almost feel the tectonic shifts that would ripple through his career and Maria's life, yet, the cost of engulfing doubts threatened to twist his resolve. He took a seat at the conference table, aligning his notes with meticulous care, but stability eluded him. Outside, the bustling city thrummed with energy, a stark reminder of the ambitions he had nurtured over the years. Yet, as he prepared to confront his colleagues, he recognized that this was as much about their perceptions of Maria as it was about his own need for validation. The moment had arrived to test not only his commitment to inclusivity but also the tenets of his very identity. His heart thudded in rhythm with the ticking clock, marking each moment with a pulse of anxiety. The door swung open, and his co-workers streamed in, their chatter falling to hushed murmurs as they took their seats. He glanced at Maria, who was perched nervously nearby. Her earlier determination seemed to flicker with uncertainty, and he felt a surge of compassion for her struggle. "Thank you all for gathering today," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "I want to discuss a new project direction, one fueled by collaboration and innovation." He paused, stealing a glance at Maria, who now held her breath, anticipation mingling with fear. "To achieve this, I've invited Maria to join our team in a managerial capacity. She brings a unique perspective that I believe can greatly enhance our work." The room fell silent. Thomas braced himself, aware of the volatile mix of skepticism and surprise swirling in the air. He could almost hear the gears turning in their minds, questions raced across their faces. Was he serious? Did he really believe that someone from a cleaning background could contribute meaningfully? "Thomas, are we really going to consider someone with her history in our project?" The skepticism came from Evan, a longtime associate with a penchant for maintaining the status quo. "This isn't charity work. We need someone who understands our processes, not someone who has only been on the periphery." Each word pierced Thomas like 1,000 needles, igniting an internal battle. Was this the kind of elitism he had hoped to step away from? The moment he had dreaded had arrived. The intersectionality of their experiences was now laid bare, and he needed to confront it head-on. The environment shifted, palpable energy crackling around them. "Evan, think about our discussions on diversity, our mission to be more than just an elite firm. Maria's experiences, though different from ours, give her insights that could challenge our blind spots. Isn't that what we need? New perspectives?" The fervor in Thomas's voice surprised even himself. He felt fueled by a growing conviction, a determination to challenge the conventionality that surrounded them. "New perspectives?" Evan scoffed, his tone dripping with the disdain that echoed in many whispered corners of the office. "You mean just taking a step backward into uncharted waters? This isn't just about ideas, it's about execution." As murmurs broke out, Thomas felt the room begin to whirl. Doubt gnawed at the edges of his resolve, compelling him to question whether this was a losing battle or a turning point. But he would not retreat. "If we avoid the complexity of new voices, aren't we already condemning ourselves to a cycle of mediocrity?" Maria's gaze met his, vulnerability mixed with an emerging flame of hope. He considered the truth in his words. Their fear of the unknown often masked their refusal to evolve. Facing his colleagues, their discontent was evident, yet he could not back down. He had made a choice, one that required not just courage but a faith in the untapped potential of those around him, including himself. The tension was palpable, the room an arena where determination collided with bias. "Today marks a decision point, not just for Maria and me, but for all of us." Clarity surged. "We have the capacity to redefine our path. Are we ready to take that leap?" Unexpectedly, a ripple of silence stretched longer than he anticipated. It was a standoff, and with every heartbeat, he understood the profound importance of this moment. As Thomas maintained his gaze, thoughts spiraled. Where would these confrontations lead? Would he find allies among skeptics? Could he foster a bridge that connected Maria's potential to the aspirations of the firm? The minute hand ticked relentlessly onward, and with every passing second, the realization dawned he was standing at the precipice of something transformative. Ultimately, this meeting had become more than a platform for professional decision-making. It had morphed into a test of character, both for him and for those who occupied the room. In that charged moment, he faced inward, wrestling with a truth looming on the horizon. He would have to redefine not just their professional structure but his own understanding of worth and contribution starting now. Then came a voice from the back, chilling the moment. "How far are you willing to go, Thomas? Are you prepared to lose everything for this cause?" His heart raced, uncertainty crashing against his fierce resolve. The storm had just begun, and with it, buried truths would surface, turning everything he believed into a battleground. Thomas's breath hitched, the question hanging in the air like a heavy fog. How far was he willing to go? In that moment, he felt the temperature drop in the room, tension coiling tighter. The faces of his colleagues flickered between disdain, curiosity, and neutrality. Each new blink or shift in posture reflected their collective uncertainty, feeding the atmosphere with an electric undercurrent of doubt. With some effort, he clenched his hands on the conference table. If it means fostering innovation, if it helps us right the missteps of the past, then yes, I'm prepared to take that leap. But we can't afford to just judge based on backgrounds. We need to judge based on capabilities. Evan's expression hardened, skepticism giving way to indignation. And what happens when it fails, Thomas? When we fall behind our competition because we've decided to play social experiment? The board won't be happy. You're risking too much. There are different forms of risk, Evan, Thomas countered, a flash of irritation sparking in his chest. Stagnation is its own kind of failure. Embracing new talent, ideas, isn't that the path forward? His claim hung like an ultimatum. Even as he spoke, an uncomfortable truth gnawed at him. Was he truly prepared for the fallout? For every advancement he hoped to forge, there lingered the heavy weight of potential backlash. His own status within the firm, his relationships with his colleagues, were they ready to evolve? Or would they crumble under the weight of his newfound convictions? He glanced at Maria, whose eyes mirrored a blend of fear and determination. Her presence felt like a fragile lifeline against the storm brewing in the room. In a bid to moderate the rapidly escalating tension, Thomas took a deep breath, leaning slightly towards the table while maintaining eye contact with each person in the room, willing to engage everyone. A successful team is built on trust. We can weather challenges together if we allow differing perspectives to shape our strategies. Yes, it means getting uncomfortable, it means stepping into the unknown. A whisper of understanding flickered among some of his colleagues, yet Evan remained unyielding, his eyes narrowed. With each resistance, Thomas's resolve deepened. The hum of the city's energy outside drifted into silence with his focus. Let us not just focus on perceived limitations, he continued, passion igniting his voice further. Let us explore the strengths that come with those limitations. Maria has worked in challenging environments, she knows resilience firsthand. Every one of us, in some way, has carried the weight of an unrecognized experience. What we need is the courage to unearth those voices. Marie's eyes began to shine with hope as the murmurs shifted, wavering between doubt and a glimmer of possibility. A challenge had been thrown, and with patience, he could sense that a shift was brewing in the collective mentality around the table. But just as the air seemed to thaw, it was interrupted by Evan's final rebuttal. You're putting us all on the line for what idealism? When things don't pan out, will you still be in the same position to defend this? Or will you throw us all under the bus to save yourself? The fear of abandonment clawed at Thomas. The concept of losing the security of his position, the relationships he had built, haunted him with a profound urgency. He felt an urge to retreat, to shield himself against the unpredictability ahead. But standing down felt far more treacherous. The weight of the moment crystallized. Here, amidst the questioning, a deeper thought clawed at him, not just about the project, but about his own fear of failure and the immense courage needed to grow. I can't promise results, but I can promise transparency and growth for all of us. That's the only assurance worth having. A charged silence enveloped the room, hearts beating in unison with thoughts racing among them. Yet, his own heart began to crack open, the realization dawning that true leadership meant wrestling with vulnerability and relinquishing some control. As he laid down his final thoughts, the door creaked open, interrupting the moment. A silhouette appeared, then stepped into the dim conference room light, startling him from his intense reverie. With wide eyes, he recognized an unexpected figure, his mentor, James, who had coasted through the corporate hierarchy with an unyielding hand, and now stood on the threshold looking intently at Thomas with an unreadable expression. The air shifted again, pregnant with new possibilities. What role would James play now? Would he assess the situation as an ally or an adversary? Thomas felt the world tilt beneath him, the stakes now impossibly higher. Whatever followed next would unravel his decisions, not just for him, but for everyone involved. What he previously thought would be a pivotal moment had transformed into a delicate balancing act of power, risk, and the quest for authenticity. "Have you made your choice, then, Thomas?" James's voice rang out, echoing ominously, as the room shifted its focus, anticipatory breaths held in unison, ready for the next move in this intricate game. Thomas's mind raced, his thoughts colliding in a chaotic whirlwind as he processed the weight of James's question. The stakes had multiplied, and the atmosphere, once tense with ambivalence, now vibrated with high stakes. He could feel every pair of eyes on him, scrutinizing, waiting for his next move, evaluating if he would stand his ground or fold under pressure. Taking a fleeting moment, he inhaled deeply, centering himself. The voice of his mentor had always been a blend of authority and unyielding wisdom. "James," Thomas started, forcing his voice to remain firm, "I believe we can innovate and grow by embracing diverse perspectives. It's not idealism, it's about evolving our approach to meet the future." James's brow furrowed, a sign of concern instead of affirmation. "And at what cost, Thomas? You're playing with people's careers, your colleagues' livelihoods. I need you to think this through." The slight tremor in his mentor's voice revealed that he cared far too much for Thomas to let him jump headfirst into a poorly conceived idea. "Every significant achievement requires risk," Thomas responded, an undercurrent of defiance threading through his words. "This isn't about recklessness. It's about potential. We need to invest in possibilities that aren't always visible on the surface." Silence settled again, dense and oppressive. Maria's eyes shifted between the two men, sensing the fiery tension but remaining steadfast in her belief in Thomas. It began to dawn on him this was no longer merely a meeting about strategy, this was a critical moment about identity. Were his values merely an echo of the company culture he resisted, or were they genuinely his own? Evan, ever the naysayer, chimed back in, the earlier skepticism in his voice replaced by a note of incredulity. "This isn't the realm of idealism, Thomas. You want to shake up the firm, fine. But have you considered the ramifications? The board won't look at your rationale through the lens of empathy." Thomas felt an icy spike of doubt jab through him. Was he, an ambitious leader, about to teeter on the edge of failure because of idealism? Each word exchanged left him more exposed. But amid the swirling uncertainty, another thought emerged, brighter than skepticism. If he backed down now, what message would that send? A flame of conviction ignited within him, sending a pulse of adrenaline coursing through his veins. "You're right, Evan. It's not just about the firm's profit, it's also about the integrity of our mission. We need to take calculated risks to adapt or we will become obsolete." James observed him carefully, as if weighing the transformation unfolding within Thomas. "You're passionate, but passion without strategy is a recipe for disaster. Real growth requires a solid foundation to stand on." Then came the invitation, the opening he had been waiting for. "What if you could help me pave that foundation?" Thomas proposed, locking eyes with James, searching for the flicker of acknowledgement he desperately wanted to see. James's expression shifted, hesitation giving way to intrigue. "You think there is something salvageable here?" "It's not about salvaging what's lost, it's about reimagining what we can build together," Thomas asserted. In that moment, he realized the importance of clarity in thoughts and connections that mattered. His own vision for the firm's future started to crystallize, the pieces rearranged like a complex puzzle slowly revealing a clear picture. "I will need your help navigating these waters, James. Together, we can define what this firm stands for and become leaders who inspire change." Despite his earlier fears, a newfound confidence began to envelop him. James nodded slowly, respect intertwining with the unease that had initially clouded his demeanor. "Very well, let us outline a proposal. But be prepared, this won't be an easy sell." Surging motivation filled Thomas as he embraced the challenge ahead. The initial ripples of doubt receded, replaced with a dawning clarity. He had taken his first steps into uncharted territory, no longer merely a cog in the wheel of corporate machinery but an architect of meaningful change. However, as the meeting began to conclude, Thomas felt a familiar yet troubling sensation settle in the pit of his stomach. If he chose this path, fully owning his newfound convictions, what would it mean for his relationships with others, particularly Evan? Could he face the backlash from a team accustomed to a certain type of leadership? The lingering uncertainty gnawed at his thoughts, a stark reminder that the road ahead promised both transformation and turmoil. The stakes had been heightened, raising the essential question that loomed in his mind: was he truly prepared to lead through the chaos, and what deeper lessons of resilience and camaraderie lay just ahead? With the meeting behind him, Thomas stepped out into the bustling office corridor, his mind racing with a cocktail of emotions: anticipation, fear, and a burgeoning sense of purpose. He had shifted from being merely a participant in the corporate machine to a pivotal player positioned at the helm of potential change. The stakes were high, yet something deeper churned within him, a desire for authentic leadership fueled by conviction and integrity. He passed familiar faces as he navigated through the throng of employees, but instead of the usual lukewarm greetings, his senses heightened. It was as if the office had transformed, every conversation buzzed with energy, every glance carried weight. He caught Maria's eye, a flicker of encouragement igniting within her gaze. That alone stoked the flames of determination coursing through him. His thoughts flickered back to Evan's pointed skepticism. He broke into a brisk walk, determined to find clarity amid the noise. Was Evan's concern valid? Every ounce of doubt he faced now bore the potential for growth. Each skepticism was a reflection of fear intertwined with their shared history, yet Thomas recognized that this confrontation was not about undermining their old dynamic but evolving it. Time spent alone in his office was no longer an escape, it became a workshop for innovation. He surrounded himself with papers, scribbling ideas, bold proposals for the new direction he envisioned. The notes became a mix of strategies and core values he wanted his team to embrace. It was in these moments of solitary creativity that his vision crystallized, the realization that risk could birth resilience, and from resilience would come the firm's rebirth. The more he mapped out his ideas, the more evident it became that fostering camaraderie would be paramount. He could not leave the old guard behind, he had to reach them, to demonstrate that their legacy could adapt rather than be dismantled. Their careers were valuable, and for him to challenge the status quo would require him not just to lead, but also to listen, collaborate, and empathize. He decided to initiate a series of informal brainstorming sessions, inviting different department heads to collaborate on the new project's vision. A round table of voices was essential, one where every opinion counted, where innovation arose from shared experiences and collective contributions. He envisioned a dialogue, not a monologue, a space free from hierarchy where ideas could take root. Every step of the planning felt exhilarating yet fraught with an underlying current of anxiety. What if they rejected change? What if his team preferred the comfort of the familiar over the choppy waters of what he proposed? Thomas clenched his jaw in determination. This was his moment to confront those fears. Later that week, he stood before the assembled team in the conference room, a mix of familiar faces and some fresh ones. His heart raced not from fear, but from excitement. As he shared his vision for the firm's evolution, he could see the gears turning in their minds. The challenge lay not only in presenting his ideas but also in engaging them, inviting their participation. Evan sat at the edge of the table, his expression unreadable. There was discomfort there, but more than that, Thomas sensed intrigue. With each passing moment, he spoke not only to the room but also to the doubts swirling inside himself. "We have a legacy that matters," he declared, passion threading through his voice. "But it's time to integrate new ideas, to spark innovation. Change doesn't mean loss, but rather evolution, and opportunity to grow stronger, together." As he flipped through his presentation slides, ready for questions and discussion, Thomas felt a stirring within him that he had yet to fully grasp. The fear of backlash lingered, yet alongside it floated a new sense of resolve. The commitment to transformation had ignited something deeper, a beacon of hope that called for authenticity in leadership. And as the first question emerged from a junior colleague expressing both apprehension and curiosity, Thomas realized he wasn't just pitching ideas, he was nurturing a culture of courage. The journey wouldn't be smooth, but it would undoubtedly be worth it, yet, as the meeting continued, shadows of doubt still loomed in the background. How would Evan respond as the tide changed? Would he rise to the challenge or retreat into old habits? Thomas felt the weight of that question settle in, an impending collision of values on the horizon, a confrontation that would challenge the very essence of their professional relationship. The moment had arrived for both growth and confrontation. But would he truly be prepared for the tests that lay ahead? The next morning, Thomas arrived early at the office, determined to solidify the groundwork of his vision. He settled into his chair, a messy collection of sticky notes and documents surrounding him, the remnants of yesterday's creative surge. The space felt charged with a new energy, a visceral reminder that change was in motion. As he opened his laptop, the quiet buzz of anticipation sped through him. Yet, even as excitement coursed through Thomas, he couldn't shake the residue of unease left by Evan's response. Hours passed as the office filled with colleagues, laughter mingling with the usual hustle. Each sound felt amplified, the stakes grew with each interaction. Could he truly rally them around his vision? Maria popped her head into his office, breaking his focus. "How did the meeting go?" she asked, both curiosity and enthusiasm in her voice. "Mixed," Thomas replied, the weight of uncertainty echoing in his words. "Evan is not on board yet. I need to address that, or my proposal won't gain traction." Maria nodded in understanding. "You can't ignore his experience. Maybe you should schedule a sit-down with him, get to the root of his concerns." Her suggestion affected Thomas viscerally. The prospect sent tremors of anxiety through him. What if Evan's opposition silenced the team's enthusiasm? But was avoiding the conversation any better? He took a deep breath. "You're right. I'll approach him today." That decision sparked a flurry of planning in his mind. He would need to be strategic in his approach, not just presenting his ideas but also listening to Evan's insights. He made notes, writing down potential arguments and solutions to counteract Evan's skepticism, but also to affirm his concerns about the risk of change. It was crucial to show that they could evolve without losing sight of their roots. Of balance he was slowly beginning to understand would be just as critical in his leadership. As the afternoon approached, Thomas's heart began to race again. He walked the familiar path to Evan's office, each step heavy with the weight of both potential and dread. The wooden door loomed large, an imposing barrier between his vision and the reality of their shared past. "Come in," Evan's voice beckoned from the other side. Thomas entered, finding Evan at his desk, an avalanche of reports stacked high. He could sense the trepidation in the air, a tension that felt thick enough to slice. "Thomas," Evan greeted, looking up. "What's on your mind?" He had imagined this moment many ways, but encountering Evan's guarded demeanor threw him off balance. Thomas cleared his throat, resolving to meet Evan's gaze. "I'd like to talk about the changes I proposed. I know you have reservations, and that matters to me." Evan leaned back, folding his arms. "This firm isn't just any business, Thomas. It's built on a foundation. Are you sure you want to risk that?" The challenge struck at the core of Thomas's internal conflict. He envisioned their past, the long nights, the shared victories, and the mutual respect that had always been their compass. Yet, he now stood on the precipice of transformation, a necessity he could no longer ignore. "I appreciate that," Thomas said, his voice steadying. "But if we cling to the past out of fear, we risk stagnation. I believe our legacy can thrive through adaptation. We need to evolve rather than dissolve." Evan raised an eyebrow, a hint of skepticism revealing itself. "And if that evolution fails? What then?" Thomas felt the rising tide of doubt at that question, and he replied, "Every change carries risk, but the alternative is more perilous, the company fading into irrelevance." The silence that ensued was palpable, a space charged with unspoken resolutions. What had started as an internal confrontation evolved into mutual reflection, as both men navigated familiar paths and unknown futures. Just as Thomas felt a flicker of hope igniting, Evan scoffed, shaking his head. You're aware that not everyone shares your enthusiasm, right? This isn't going to be easy. Thomas pressed on, the determination to lead outweighing his fears. I'm willing to face that if it means building a stronger team. Together, we can face this head-on. But beneath the surface, Thomas sensed an impending storm, a clash that would challenge not only his vision but his very relationship with Evan. With walls closing in on him, he realized that this was only the beginning of a much deeper struggle, a challenge to be met. As they stood gearing up towards the impossible, would they emerge as allies in this fight for evolution, or would the tension between them become an insurmountable barrier? Without answers, Thomas breathed deeply, knowing the staff dependence on this unfolding story might leave him hanging, daring him to at once lead and love his newfound vision. The subsequent days blurred into a blend of anxiety and resolution. Each morning, as Thomas stepped into the office, the weight of the impending challenge loomed larger. Evan's skepticism barbed at his confidence, every interaction felt charged, laden with unspoken tension. Yet, as he settled into the rhythm of daily tasks, a growing realization dawned on him: achieving real change wouldn't merely require a strategy, he had to cultivate a culture of trust and openness. Determined to turn the tide, Thomas organized an informal team meeting. He envisioned it as a safe space for ideas, a vibrant exchange where voices could rise and challenges could be addressed openly. The task ahead felt Sisyphean, yet he clung to the belief that collective effort would create momentum against Evan's resistance. The room was abuzz with chatter as Thomas faced his colleagues. Maria sat front and center, offering him an encouraging nod. He cleared his throat, his heart pounding in sync with his intention. "I'd like to share some ideas I've been working on," he began, trying to project assurance. "But more importantly, I want to hear your thoughts. How can we evolve?" As he spoke, he encouraged participation. He asked direct questions, inviting different perspectives into the dialogue. The more he listened, the more he understood the depths of their concerns and aspirations. Sarah in marketing brought up the need for brand loyalty, while Jack, from operations, spoke of the necessity to streamline processes to maintain efficiency amidst change. With each contribution, Thomas felt the team crystallizing around a shared vision, one he hadn't fully recognized was forming until that moment, but not everyone was convinced. Evan stood in the doorway, arms crossed, eyebrows drawn low. His presence undulated, a challenge that hung in the air. "You think throwing around ideas is enough? Change isn't just about discussion, it's about implementation, and that requires more than friendly meetings." Evan's tone struck Thomas like a cold winter wind. Beneath the layers of enthusiasm boiling within, irritation sparked. Hadn't they just invested time as a team to nurture a shared purpose? "It's a step, Evan," Thomas retorted, struggling to cloak his frustration. "The heart of progress lies in our ability to communicate, to collaborate." The room was eerily silent, the air thickening as colleagues flicked nervous glances from Evan to Thomas. "Communication doesn't build trust," Evan shot back, a subtle edge creeping in. "Actions do. You've yet to prove whether you can lead us through this." "They're watching, Thomas. You're allowing their hopes to blind you from what's realistically possible." The reminder cut deeper than he expected. A tinge of doubt crept in. Was he deluding himself in believing he could bridge the chasm between tradition and change? His palms grew clammy as doubts whispered in the corridors of his mind, stifling his momentum. Yet within that moment, he felt a flicker of resolve igniting anew. "I will show you," Thomas asserted, his voice steadying. "I won't just talk, I'll act. We all will." It was a promise, a commitment that tethered him to their collective journey. Evan's gaze pierced through him, but in that moment, Thomas could see slight recognition. The glimmer of understanding flickered in Evan's eyes. After the meeting, Thomas stepped outside for air, a wave of nervous energy washing over him. He was wading into uncharted territory, but now, it was not merely about his own vision, it was about a shared evolution. He had begun to realize that being a leader wasn't about wielding authority, it was about facilitating growth. The concept formed like threads weaving into a tapestry, a vision built upon shared aspirations, resilient against doubts. That evening, as he reflected on the day over lukewarm coffee, a stirring thought emerged. He needed to establish an ongoing dialogue, one punctuated with feedback loops and iterative processes, allowing both successes and failures to shape their path. A plan took shape in his mind, and with it, a deeper understanding of his role as a leader. Yet, even beneath that growing clarity, an unsettling feeling tugged at him. He needed to prepare for the backlash. Transformation often resulted in pushback. Would his team rally against internal resistance, or would they fracture under pressure? The questions hung over him like a storm cloud, heavy, anticipated, and yet, exhilarating. As he closed his laptop for the night, he felt a familiar surge of energy coursing through him. It was time to take on the challenge ahead, not just as a strategist, but as a leader ready to embrace the storms of change and conflict. The real question lingered, fierce in its uncertainty: could he navigate the turbulence that awaited him with Evan at the helm of opposition? The answer hung in precarious balance. The following week felt like a crucible, a trial by fire where Thomas needed to distill his intentions into tangible actions. Each day reinforced his belief that vulnerability was a cornerstone of leadership. He faced Evan more frequently, the hostility oscillating between skepticism and reluctant recognition. Their conversations turned into strategic duels, and Thomas began seeking ways to win Evan over, seeing beneath the hostility a deep concern for the company's stability. One afternoon, he prepared a presentation targeting the team's immediate challenges and Evan's concerns. Combining metrics with a compelling narrative, his intention was clear: he wanted to illustrate that change was not merely a possibility but an imperative. The proposal centered on developing small, actionable steps that could lead to significant results, turning his prior discussions into a blueprint. As he paced around his small office, rehearsing his speech aloud, Thomas found himself caught in the mental tug-of-war between his confidence and self-doubt. Would Evan appreciate his efforts, or would he dismiss them as another series of lofty ideas? Each rhetorical question invaded his mind like a bothersome fly. The day of the presentation arrived. With Maria, Sarah, and Jack on his side, surrounded by supportive nods, Thomas felt the initial tremors of anxiety abate. He recognized the power of collaboration. They found common cause in his words. Encouraged, he began, "Today, I want to outline a path forward. It blends our collective insights and addresses our most pressing issues." The room fell quiet, tension palpable as he unveiled his proposal. As he dissected the proposal, Evan's expression hardened, but Thomas pressed on. "It's about incremental change. We initiate a pilot project to enhance our processes. If results are positive, we scale wider. If not, we gather the necessary feedback and adapt." He watched Evan's brow furrow, a sign that his counterarguments might be brewing. "You think this will satisfy everyone?" Evan's voice sliced through the atmosphere. "Yes," Thomas replied, his voice steadier than he felt. "Because it invites ownership. People won't just be following orders, they will be involved in crafting solutions that impact their work and the company's future." Evan's posture shifted slightly, arms uncrossed, fingers tapping lightly against his desk. Was that a flicker of interest? "Why should they trust you, Thomas?" Evan challenged, digging deeper. "You're asking for faith that you can lead this change. How do we know you'll follow through?" In that moment, doubt swelled within Thomas, but a steady determination anchored him. "Trust is built through actions. I'm willing to put my plan into practice, and I believe the team will hold me accountable," he countered, his heart racing against a backdrop of growing resolve. Evan held his gaze, weighing his words. The standoff was electric, woven with the threads of a confrontation that divulged more than mere opinions. It was an unspoken acknowledgement of their conflicting strategies, both battling for legitimacy. When the meeting concluded, the team appeared energized, but Thomas's mind still rattled. His exchange with Evan had clarified one vital truth: he must deliver results to reinforce trust. He meticulously crafted a timeline and set measurable objectives, ready to transform vision into reality. That evening, adrenaline coursing through him, he pondered the stakes. His leadership journey had morphed into an intricate dance between doubt and determination. With every step forward, there lay the possibility of failure, but he could no longer shy away from risks. As he prepared for the next day, a single thought resonated through him like a siren call: the time had come to execute. Each plan, every proposal, needed action behind it. Would he successfully navigate Evan's scrutiny and lead his team toward transformation, or would he drown in the weight of expectations? The real test awaited him at dawn, beckoning with promise and peril intertwined. In the weeks that followed, Thomas Reilly's endeavor to infuse fresh ideas into his firm evolved from a mere concept into a palpable movement. He witnessed the palpable change in the office atmosphere as colleagues began to engage more openly, feeling invigorated by the prospect of participation. The pilot project launched under his leadership, and with Maria at the helm of one of the sub-teams, their initial steps were marked by collaborative triumphs, echoing through the corridors. Gradually, walls that once divided expertise from experience crumbled, making space for synergy. With every meeting, Thomas's resolve solidified. The guiding principle he shared to foster an environment where everyone could contribute their voices was taking root. It became apparent that this wasn't merely a mission to integrate Maria into the team, it was a battle against entrenched biases no one had realized existed, including himself. His vision pivoted from a personal achievement to a collective growth story, steeped in authenticity. Gradually, metrics demonstrated improvement. Productivity spiked, and their workflows became streamlined. The once skeptically observed pilot project began garnering attention from senior leadership, including the board. Thomas found himself at the epicenter of conversations that had once seemed inaccessible. He stood with Maria during board presentations, sharing their results and the inspiring stories that emerged from the team's collective efforts. Evan's skepticism began to evolve. No longer solely a barrier, he transformed into a cautious ally, slowly realizing the potential that lay within their approach. The more times Thomas and Maria co-presented outcomes, the more Evan recognized the strength in collaboration, and amidst this transformation, an unexpected camaraderie bloomed between them. Evan challenged Thomas, but it was through this confrontation that they forged a partnership driven by respect. Thomas learned the value of reflection, sitting down with Maria to assess not only successes but also failures. Each setback became a stepping stone, a measure of resilience that he carefully documented. They all shared in the belief that vulnerability was not a weakness but a profound strength. In inviting others to engage and learn from mistakes, he saw the transformation not just in himself but in the entire team. Recognition came from unexpected places. One afternoon, as whispers of their achievements circulated, Thomas received an email from the corporate office inviting him to present their success story at an upcoming industry summit. The invitation carried a weight he hadn't anticipated. It was a spotlight on the collective journey, reflecting that risking the unknown had reaped rewards beyond individual ambition. The firm was evolving into a model for collaborative innovation. Facing a new audience, he felt the familiar surge of anxiety. Standing at the podium, he opened the floor by candidly sharing their unexpected journey, the struggles, the successes, and the lessons learned not only from triumphs but from setbacks. The way he engaged the audience ignited an understanding that true leadership lies in collective effort and inclusion. Each applause resonated deeper than mere accolades. It became a testament to the power of authenticity in leadership. As Thomas concluded his presentation, a standing ovation enveloped him, but it was Maria's proud smile from the audience that marked the pinnacle of his achievement. He realized this wasn't just a recognition of his professional evolution, but of a cause he genuinely believed in, a testament to empowerment that transcended titles and positions. Looking out at a sea of compassionate faces, Thomas understood that he had not only proved his competence but redefined his character. Solid confidence replaced uncertainty. He had navigated the storm he once feared, leading not just with ideas but resolved integrity. Returning to the office the next day, he felt lighter, buoyed by satisfaction. The journey had transformed him into a leader who embodied resilience rather than simply navigating it. The evolution of his own understanding of worth had become intertwined with the worth of others. In empowering Maria and his team, he discovered a rejuvenated purpose that transcended projects and budgets, it resonated with the true essence of professional legacy. His final confirmation came from the company's leadership, formal recognition of their innovative practices that would set the trajectory for future growth. It was more than a desirable shift in the business landscape. It had morphed into a philosophical anchor guided by a commitment to inclusivity. Now truly fulfilled, Thomas faced a bright horizon. This was not an ending, but a new beginning, an unwavering commitment to create spaces where diversity was celebrated, and every voice mattered. As he stood reflecting at his office window, he felt alive. The challenges ahead would be met not with trepidation but with the excitement of endless potential. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm, it really makes a difference. Comment with your reactions and theories about this conclusion, we want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second.